Hey, Motorman here, and I haven't done a tips, tricks, and techniques video in a while, so that's what I'm going to do today. And I'm going to explain why we do particular exercises on the Ride Like a Pro course. By the way, if you're new to this channel, I'm a retired motor officer. I've been teaching the police motor officer techniques to you, the average rider, for I think it's 26 years. I'm the first guy on YouTube to do this, and I know there's hundreds of imitators. There's experts coming out of the woodwork on YouTube teaching the stuff that I've been teaching for 26 years. I'm also, of course, the maker of the Ride Like a Pro video, the #1 selling motorcycle instructional video in the world. So today we're going to talk about the people, because I get these comments all the time. I don't ride around cones. What good is that? I don't need to know how to turn, lean, turn, swerve. I just ride down the road. I'm a road rider. Well, that's almost always said by people who couldn't make a simple U-turn to save their lives. So I'm going to tell you exactly why we do particular exercises and how they're going to help you out on the road. So let's go. We'll take a ride today. Okay, let me explain this to you, since there's a lot of people that need, I guess, this type of explanation. Why do we do what we do at the Ride Like a Pro class? And yes, I know there's a lot of imitators of my Ride Like a Pro class, as well as people on YouTube. But the idea of practicing under controlled conditions is the chance of a crash, of course, is much, much, much lower than if we practiced out on the street, the same thing. And the first thing that we do in my class is we start with the slow race. That is, we travel in a straight line at a walking pace. That tells you how good you are at coordinating the clutch and throttle. We're using the friction zone and just a tiny bit of the rear brake pressure. And we're going straight. Do this, I mean, the average person can get this figured out in about 15 minutes. Some in less than a minute. So that's the first thing, because when you're riding at low speeds, you got to use that friction zone. And then we're going to go into the slow cone weave. That's a series of cones in a straight line. Doesn't matter how many cones you put in that straight line. Usually start with 5 or 6. Yeah, start with them at 15 feet apart. That's what we do at my class, and eventually we get down to 12 feet apart. When you're doing this, you want to use cones that are at least 8 or 10 inches high, because if the cones are like those little MSF cones, yeah, you could be knocking them over or running them over and not even know it. But when you got the cones that are at least, I don't know what they are, the small cones, 6, 8 inches, if you're not dipping the motorcycle, you're probably knocking over the cones. So why would we do that? Why do we want to get that bike dipping, swerving quickly through that slalom? Well, here's an example. Out on the street, cruising down a road. Let's say there was a line of parked cars over here. Generally, on a side street like that, you're going pretty slow. Suddenly, somebody opens up the door right into your path. If you're not used to doing that, I guarantee you, you're going to look at that door and you're going to slam right into it. I know this because most of the people who come to me have been riding for many years. And the first couple of times through that exercise, the slow cone weave, they're afraid to dip their bike. They try to keep it straight up. If you keep the bike straight up and steer through the cones, that means you're at 5 miles an hour or below. And anything below 5 miles an hour, there's more force of gravity pulling you to the ground than the force pulling you forward. So ideal speed, depending on how far apart the cones are and what kind of bike you have, the shorter the wheelbase of the bike, the faster you can go through it. But the idea of it is to get that bike dipping quickly from side to side. And this dipping motion makes every low speed maneuver you ever perform so much easier. Here's another thing that helps you with if you're just cruising down the road. So let's say there's a SUV or pickup truck or something in front of you. Even if you're a safe distance behind that vehicle could go over a big pothole. It winds up in the center of the four-wheeled vehicle, and all of a sudden it appears in front of you. If you never practice that swerve, just like that, what's going to happen? You're going to look at that hole and you're going to run right into it. Usually takes people, they said, probably 30 to 40 minutes, depending on how many riders I have in the class, to really get the hang of dipping that bike, seriously dipping it from side to side. I'm going to slow down here and show you what a serious dip is at 8 or 10 miles an hour in the friction zone. I'm dipping that motorcycle from side to side. I'm exaggerating the motion you'd probably need to avoid somebody opening up their car door in front of you. But it's just like the baseball player who gets up and he swings 3 bats, because when he's ready to hit the ball and he uses just 1 bat, that bat feels so much lighter. So we make this dip even more exaggerated than you'll find out on the road. And then this exercise leads to a 30-foot U-turn. While most bikes, especially Harley Davidsons, will U-turn in less than 18 feet, I started at 30 feet. I don't care what kind of production motorcycle you have, even some of the production choppers can turn in 30 feet. So why is a U-turn important? Well, if you don't know how to use the friction zone, your head and eyes, one of the most important techniques, knowing where to look and when to look there, you're going to have to duck walk your 800 or 900 pound motorcycle through that U-turn. That shows everybody, the whole world and yourself, that you have no clue how to ride a motorcycle if you can't make a simple U-turn in 30 feet. Once that's accomplished, that 30-foot U-turn, it becomes easy. It's again 15-20 minutes of practice. I start narrowing it down till we get to 24 feet and sometimes even 18 feet, depending on the riders in the class. If I got a lot of good riders, I know I can get down to 18-foot turns really quickly. If they're the average rider, 24 feet is plenty good enough for them. And if they want later on to learn how to do the 18-foot turns, I throw that in the class as well. The next exercise is the offset cone weave. And what that is a series of left turns and right turns, very similar to what you find on like a switchback road where you have severe turns. The Dragon immediately comes to mind. If you cannot transition your motorcycle quickly and you have a fear of leaning your motorcycle on roads like that, you're probably going to run right off the road. That is the most common motorcycle crash that involves just the rider failing to negotiate a curve. Even here in Florida, where I think we have 5 winding roads in the entire state, people are running off of those curves every freaking day. It's crazy. Simply because they don't know where to look, when to look there, how to use their head and eyes, a very important technique. Wherever I turn my head and eyes, that's where the bike will go. If you don't know those things, your chances of running off a winding road are very, very good. It also helps if you're cruising down a road at speed and a car violates your right-of-way by pulling out in front of you. You better be able to make that same big swerve and make it quickly. If you don't have a time enough to stop the motorcycle, you better be able to do this really fast. And yes, it's more severe than what I just showed you in the offset cone weave, but that's good. I think of it as maybe teardrop shaped turns or a half circle to the left, half circle to the right. Most riders, average rider, been riding for 20, 30 years. It takes 3, 4, sometimes 5 times through the exercise before they start to get the hang of it. Out on the road, you got one shot at it. That car pulls out in front of you, you got one time, and usually at higher speed. If you don't make it, you're going to get seriously hurt. Why wait until it happens and then say, okay, I crashed, now I'm going to learn how to really ride the motorcycle? That's crazy. Next thing we do is we go to the intersection. I set it up at 24 foot wide by 36 feet long. And again, that's a series of left to right transitions. So you're learning your U-turns and quick transitions all at the same time. And once again, if you don't turn your head and eyes and look where you want to put that front tire, you are in deep trouble. If you have no conception of how to use that technique, the head and eyes technique, well, you're coming around a winding road, you think you're going too fast, you look at the guardrail or the oncoming car. Since the bike goes where you look, your hands will steer you right into that vehicle that you are trying to avoid. This road, by the way, I think I measured this once, it's like 20 feet, so let's make a U-turn here. Make sure nobody's coming behind me. I got plenty of room to spare. This bike turns in about somewhere around 16 feet. We also run that intersection in both directions so that all your U-turns at first are to the left, and then all the U-turns are going to be to the right, and then we add some circles to it. So you got to do a couple of circles inside the legs. Why do we do circles? I know people say, I don't do circles out on the road. No, but it forces you to use that most important technique, head and eyes. If you don't turn your head all the way over your shoulder when you're making those circles, you ain't going to make it. If you look at the cones you're trying to avoid, you will hit them every time. My cones have been run over so many times it's not even funny. Luckily, they're just rubber cones and nothing's going to happen. Out on the street, the obstacle probably is going to be another vehicle, maybe a dog or even a child that walks out in front of you. So that's why we use that technique, head and eyes. The only exercise that really has nothing to do with situations you'll find out on the road is the figure eight. So why do a figure eight? Well, here's why. It forces you to use all three techniques at once. Head and eyes, friction zone, a little pressure on the rear brake. If you go to the gym, I'm sure that one of the exercises you're going to perform is a bench press. Very popular exercise. Why do a bench press? You don't have to do a bench press in real life because it builds upper body strength, overall strength in your upper body. Same thing with the figure eight. It builds overall strength in your riding abilities. If you have no technique, if you're just riding on instinct, what your brain tells you, which is always wrong when it comes to motorcycles, you will never be able to perform a tight figure eight. Tight meaning starting at about 24 feet. You can get down as far as, I think it's like 16 feet. That's really tough, and that's an advanced exercise, and you really don't have to go that far. But once you can get down to about 18 or 20 foot figure eight, so that's two circles, either 18 or 20 feet around, connected in the middle, it helps you with your quick transitions, and it forces you to use your head and eyes. Then we'll step up to a high-speed cone weave. A high-speed cone weave, we've got the cones at 30 feet apart, and we're going to go 20 miles an hour. This helps you with your counter steering. Now, I'm well aware that any two-wheel vehicle, or on any two-wheel vehicle, you are always counter steering. That's how the bike steers. However, I like to break it down into below 15 miles an hour. I call it handlebar steering because we're turning those handlebars. Anybody can see that that's what we're doing at low speeds. We're turning the handlebars to get the bike to turn and lean. But at higher speeds, a lot of people don't realize you're actually doing the same thing. But we're going to call it, at high speeds, they call it counter steering. I think that's a little confusing. So I like to call it push steering. If I want to go to the right, I'm going to push forward on this right grip. The more I push on it, the tighter my turn is going to be. If I want to go to the left, like this curve coming right up here, I'm going to show you this one-handed. I push forward on the left grip. It is the only way to make a motorcycle turn at speed. Push forward on the right grip, it goes right, leans right and goes right. Same thing with the left. I've heard people say, and they argue with me all the time, that no, you push down on the bars. We hear I'm pushing down. I got all my weight on these bars. The bike ain't turning at all. If you've ever made it around a curve at speed, you've counter steered and you don't even know it. So why do you have to know then how to counter steer? Why do I have to even tell you about that? Well, as I've said many times, if you're cruising down a road, maybe you're on a 3-lane road, you're in the middle, a car on your right side starts to veer into your lane. If you've never practiced counter steering, now's the time you really need to know how to do it. If this car coming at me starts to veer into my lane, I push forward on the right grip, the bike leans right and goes right. If you're not used to that and you just try to turn the bars away from it like you'd steer your car, watch when I try to do this. I try to turn right, the bike goes left. You'll smash right into that car. So that's why it's important to practice that, to understand how the steering of a motorcycle, any two-wheel vehicle, works. If you actually knew how to ride your motorcycle, it's a lot more fun to ride and a lot safer. So I hope you understand this. Hey, get a copy of my Ride Like a Pro experience video. I go through this step-by-step on every kind of bike you could imagine with a whole bunch of different riders, male, female, big, tall, short, small. It doesn't matter. Size or strength has nothing to do with your abilities. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Get yourself a copy of my Ride Like a Pro video. It's on download for just 20 bucks. The best 20 bucks you'll ever spend on your motorcycle. Thanks for watching. By the way, my next class is going to be on the 18th. It's a Sunday here in Spring Hill, Florida. You go on ridelikeapro.com. You can sign up for the class. it's going to be getting pretty hot really soon, so maybe next week might be the perfect time to learn these techniques. If you're not in the Florida area, I've got 15 schools around the country. Go to ridelikeapro.com and click on other training locations. For my particular class, just click on Classes with Motorman.